This is Rick Hawkins with Hawk Talk News, where you hear the news first. Our top story today deals with an imposter. This imposter has infiltrated Conestoga High School. He's impostoring Mr. Hawkins, the geometry teacher at Conestoga High School. It started around mid-March. You might have seen it in some deranged math videos he's posted on YouTube. For more information on this topic, we found an interview with Mrs. Hawkins. Let's go to that interview right now. Mr. Hawkins here with Mrs. Hawkins as we try to find out more about this imposter. Mrs. Hawkins, could you please tell us how you feel about this imposter that's impersonating your husband?
Oh, well, I guess the way that I feel about this imposter is that he is just annoying in different ways than the real Mr. Hawkins. So, for example, Mr. Hawkins, the real one, never made us do math on the kitchen floor, never made circles everywhere in the house, didn't make us participate in videos. So that has definitely been challenging with the imposter.
And there you have it. Back to you at the studio. Fascinating interview. Such a dynamic and beautiful woman. In any attempt, if you come in contact with this deranged lunatic, please contact the school district. In other news, there's been developments within the Hawkins household. Recently, Master Joey Hawkins has learned to ride a bicycle. We were able to capture a video of this event coming up here. Down. Looking more into this, we were also able to get an interview with Joey Hawkins about him riding a bicycle for the first time. Here's that interview. Hi, this is Rick Hawkins, finding out more about this Joey Hawkins and his riding of his bike. Joey Hawkins, how did you feel when you first were able to ride a bike?
Kind of good.
Joey, what do you think the hardest part of riding a bike is?
Very focused.
And there you have it. What a great young man. Congratulations, Joey, on being able to ride a bicycle now. Back to you, Mr. Hawkins, at the studio. Such an amazing story. He should be very proud of himself. In other news, there has been some change in the Hawkins household. The change has been moving from a subject of circles, which has been going on for many, many weeks, and has been fascinating at the same time. We've been moving into something called probability. You might have seen it in a previous video. To get more information on this, we were able to catch up with Maggie Hawkins and interview on the change of subject within the household. Here's that interview. Hi, this is Rick Hawkins interviewing Maggie Hawkins, resident of the Hawkins household, about her opinion on the concept change from circles into probability. Maggie, how do you feel about these changes in the curriculum in the household?
Honestly, it's kind of getting boring and I'm happy we're moving on, and I hope I'm not in any more videos.
And there you have it. Back to you, Mr. Hawkins, at the studio. Another fascinating interview, such a bright young lady. In other news, looking further into probability, it turns out that there is more to know. You're familiar with the independent and dependent compound probability. It turns out that there is another form of compound probability. This deals with mutually exclusive events. To delve more into this, we have an interview with Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins here. I had an opportunity to catch up with Mr. Hawkins to ask him further questions about this new compound probability that we were talking about. Mr. Hawkins, this new compound probability, how is it different from independent and dependent probability? Hey, Mr. Hawkins, thank you for the interview. How is it different from independent and dependent? Well, I can tell you how it is the same. Mutually exclusive events and independent and dependent are both forms of compound probability. What that means is you're dealing with more than one event in the probability problem. Now, the difference comes about is how you come up with those events. So when we talked about independent and dependent, we use problems with decks of cards. And again, if I'm picking a card out of the deck and I say, okay, I'm going to pick two cards, what's the probability that they're both kings? So I pick the one card out and I'm worried about am I putting it back or am I not putting it back? What's the probability that that's a king? And then I pick a second one out and I figure out what's the probability of that one being a king. Well, the difference comes in this way. Now you're no longer picking two cards to get your two events. you're only picking one card for the event, but there's still events going on. So for instance, if I pick a card and I want to find the probability, is this a king or a club? So I'm just making the one pick, but I have two events that I'm worried about, king and club, but I did it on one pick. So again, independent, dependent, I would pick two. What's the probability this is a king and this is a king? Notice I use the word and in there. When I do the mutually exclusive events, again, I would do what's the probability that this is a king or a club. Now I don't combine them with and, I combine them with the word or. So that's pretty much sums up the distance. Am I picking one or am I picking two, whether they be marbles or cards? What different things do you have to do to calculate this new probability? So when we were calculating the independent and dependent, again, if I wanted to figure out the probability that this one's a king and the probability that this one's a king, you had to multiply those probabilities. In mutually exclusive events, you're not going to be multiplying probabilities anymore. The events now are going to be added together. However, there is a problem with mutually exclusive, which I'll explain in the notes. And the problem with mutually exclusive is, again, if I want to find the probability that this is a king or a club, that is not a mutually exclusive situation. I can have a king of clubs. Then I have to worry about subtracting out the one scenario that's being repeated. And again, I'll explain all that in the notes today. So basically, independent, dependent, you're multiplying. And then on mutually exclusive events, you're going to be adding probabilities, sometimes subtracting them if you have overlap or a repeated event. Fascinating information. We'll go back to the studio now, back with Mr. Hawkins. Another fine interview, very handsome young man. In any event, you'll find a folder within here, within the folder for today, in regards to the notes for the day. Again, that'll be going over these mutually exclusive events and how to calculate these probabilities. And as usual, if you have any questions, you can always email or come to my office hours. But in any event, this is Mr. Hawkins signing off for Hawk Talk News, where you hear the news first.